Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Classic Movies with Ron McCloskey. Today, my guest is Alan Semok, and we have something very interesting and something completely delightful to share with all of you. We're going to show a film that I don't think too many people know about. It's called Letter of Introduction, but one of the stars in it is Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. And first, welcome, Alan Semok.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you to the show.
Nice to be here.
How long have we known each other?
My gosh, probably 35 years or more.
Wow. Okay. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're up to now.
Well, I'm an actor, ventriloquist, voice person, and right now I'm building dummies and doing some voice work. And,
Okay. Now, where are you from? You grew up in Jersey?
I grew up in the area here, actually.
Okay.
I grew up in Fords.
Okay.
Born in Perth Amboy, grew up in Fords.
Okay.
Currently living in Somerset.
Right. Okay. And throughout your years of being involved with this, who have you had a chance to maybe meet and even perform with?
In the field of
Well, in all fields, but yeah, ventriloquism, but all
oh
fields.
my gosh, it's been an interesting ride because I've gotten to meet a lot of the people I looked up to when I was growing up.
Right.
Like Chuck McCann and Paul Ashley, who did the puppets on Chuck McCann's show. For those people that grew up in this area will know about Chuck McCann.
Sure. Yeah.
I've worked with Paul Winchell. I've worked with Jimmy Nelson. I recently worked with Kevin Spacey.
Oh, wow.
I worked as an advisor on a short film that he was doing in which he was portraying a ventriloquist.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of showed him some of the little tricks that I had basically 2 days to work with him.
Right.
And then I built a dummy for the film that he was working on.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, so that was fun. Similar thing with Adrian Brody. I worked with Adrian Brody.
So now, how did this start for you? I mean, as a kid, it was like magic or ventriloquism. How did this develop?
Well, we wind backwards again to the Chuck McCann show. I mean, I grew up watching that show, and Paul Ashley's puppets on them were very much like ventriloquist figures. They were articulated mouths and other facial movements. And, and Paul Winchell's television show was still on the air at that time, too. Edgar Bergen was still on television every once in a while. He was kind of semi-retired, but he'd pop up on the Hollywood Palace or something like that, you know. And it just, I was fascinated by it, and I think I want to try that. So 6th grade, my school had a book fair, and there it was on the table, a book on ventriloquism. So, you know, I weaseled $5 out of my mom, you know, and bought the book, and the rest is history, I guess.
So now, what did you do with your first dummy? Did you go out and buy one? Did you make one? What did you do?
Yeah, at the time, there was a company in New York called the Juro Novelty Company. They were on East 18th Street in New York City, and they made replicas of Jerry Mahoney and Danny O'Day, who was Jimmy Nelson's character. And I started with one of those, and I guess probably in about the second year or so, I was again watching Chuck's show, and he was doing a thing on camera with Paul Ashley where they were answering reader mail, and somebody had written in saying, well, how does Mr. Ashley make those puppets, you know? And in about 15 or 20 seconds, Paul gave this very general description, and you know, I would just tuned into it somehow. And the next day, you know, I was at the art store getting clay and sculpting out a head. And so my first one, I was very crude out of paper mache. And it lasted about a week. But then the second one I actually still have. It was made out of a wood dough, and that's how I started.
That's great. So did you do birthday parties and the American Legion? And
yeah, it was a lot better than having a paper out too. Let me tell you, and paid more.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then what did you do for material? Because I have no problem saying I stole everything when I was a kid. When I saw Joe, I mean, is that what you did, or you wrote your own stuff?
When I was a kid, I used a lot of material that was in. Paul Winchell had written a book on ventriloquism, and he gave away 3 routines.
Oh, okay.
So I used bits and pieces of that, and eventually I started writing my own stuff. But those early Winchell routines were kind of the foundation of what I started with, and that kind of helped to form the characters that I was developing too.
Right.
So I'm in that Jerry Mahoney mode, you know.
Right. Now, how far did you get? I mean, did you get up to being opening acts for people, or how far did your career progress?
I worked at clubs for a while, you know, and I did a lot of corporate stuff, as I know you did, because some of them we did together, actually, all those years ago. And as I became more known for building the puppets,
Okay.
I was also called upon to be consultant for like TV commercial things and,
Right.
and things like that. So it just kind of a lot of different aspects of the
Yeah,
business
right.
I had my hands
Okay.
in. You know.
So one of the first ones you worked for then was Chuck?
No, actually, I did some work for Paul Winchell.
Okay.
In the mid-late 80s.
Okay.
He was starting to lose his vision, so I was helping out with doing some maintenance
Right.
on some of his puppets.
Right.
But I guess Jimmy Nelson was the first one that I actually met of the people
Okay.
that I looked up to. I actually was on, if you remember, Wonderama
Sure.
when
yeah.
Sonny Fox was still the host.
Right.
I had written them a letter and saying, hey, I'm a ventriloquist. I could be on TV,
Right.
And so, much to my surprise, about a week after I had written the letter, the phone rings, and this is Kathy Berlin at the Wonderama office, and I'm on the other end of the phone here, going hi, hi, my lips moving and nothing was coming out.
Wow.
And so I wound up on the show, and the day before the taping, actually, they taped on Wednesdays in the afternoon. I got a call from them, and she identified herself again. I said, "Oh boy, okay, they're canceling it."
Right.
She says, "Well, we have a surprise for you. We're going to booked Jimmy Nelson to be on the show with you." And
wow.
I went from like yes to
Yeah.
oh my God, he's going to make me look so bad.
Yeah.
But couldn't be further from the truth. He was
Oh,
such a
that's
nice
great.
guy. He has to be one of the nicest guys in show business,
Right.
and
You don't have a tape of that show, do you?
none exists, thank God.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's talk about what we have here, because again, for me, Edgar Bergen will always be one of the best, if not the best.
He brought the art form back into the limelight. I mean,
Right.
it had a run in vaudeville, and the fact that he did it on radio is just even more incredible.
Yeah. No, it is so fantastic that his career went from vaudeville and then to the radio, and that's really, I think, where he became this major star.
Yes.
I mean, he did television, he did film, but it was radio that really brought him to a level that had never been seen, I don't think, in the spectrum of show business, to be that popular and to have those puppets be so popular. So what do we have here behind us? And explain, if you can, each one. Let's start with this one down here. This is what now?
This is a figure that I'm working on. I've been working on it for a while, and he's unfinished. He's in his very still a rough form. None of his animations are installed yet, but he's going to be like a country western singer kind of a character who doesn't doesn't really have a clue.
Okay. Now again, this is not wood, but this is what is this?
It's a wood material.
Okay.
I make it out of sawdust and some binders and some nitrocellulose.
Okay.
And it handles like a putty, but when it's cured, it turns it into something that's identical to wood. In fact, maybe even a little tougher.
Okay. Now, do you make a sketch first, and then based on the sketch, you do the puppet?
Sometimes I'll sketch them first.
Okay.
More often than not, I'll just jam with the clay.
Right.
Make the armature and just start sculpting. I have a mirror in front of me too, so if I make the expressions, I try to duplicate them onto the clay.
Okay. All right. And next to him is who?
That is a casting of Edgar Bergen's Charlie McCarthy.
Okay.
It was these were made originally when he was being fitted for wigs.
Okay.
They would make them out of a material that the wig makers could pin into.
Okay.
And it's the exact size, shape, and dimension of Charlie's head because it's cast directly from his head.
Right. Okay. Now again, is this styrofoam?
It's a type of urethane foam.
Okay.
Yeah, similar to styrofoam. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. And next to him, who's this?
Next to him, that's a character that I had built some years ago, and I eventually revised it after I had a chance to work with the Paul Ashley puppets for a few years after I graduated from college.
Right.
And he taught me so much about sculpting that I said, well, I have to remake that one, and this is the end result of that, the one sitting next to him.
Okay.
So he's an earlier version of this one here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Because again, and again, now staying on this one, this is fully operational, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it's got all the mechanisms.
We can take a look
whatever.
inside if you want
Okay.
to.
Yeah. Let's take a look. The one we're looking at here is Laszlo,
Yes.
and he seems to be a little cold. That's why he's got the scarf on. But yeah, if we could pick him up a second,
sure.
Alan, and let's take a look at it exactly how he operates. There we go.
All right. So, this is actually a chance to show the operation, too, of how all these things work. What we have here, this lever, this will move his mouth like that. Yeah. And this one here, you check everybody out in the room here. Kind of sad, isn't it? No, never mind. Just looking over there, okay? And this one here puts him to sleep. Okay, that's enough of that. So now, we'll turn around to give a look at the inside here. And you can see the plumbing inside here. It gets a little complex, but that's what makes everything on the outside happen. Okay, so there's the mechanics are all made of brass and stainless steel, and everything in there is a pretty tight fit. And there's a combination of strings and springs and everything else, and that's basically what makes it all happen.
Now, are there certain names to these levers, like left or right, or eyes, or what?
Mouth, eyelids, eyes.
Okay,
just like that.
great.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most common of the movements that any head will make?
Pretty much, yeah, at least that. When Laszlo 2 was made, I added one other thing to his mechanical abilities. After my work with Paul Ashley, if we can swing over to here, he's got one extra little thing here that, this is my Paul Ashley influence. Paul's puppets all had very expressive eyebrows.
Right.
Usually running downward like that
Yeah.
instead of upwards, so it's, but that was perfect for his personality.
Right.
Be quiet. All right, never mind.
Well, that's what I was going to mention, because that's the only other facial movement that I think I know of is the eyebrows.
Right,
Is
yeah.
that happens too.
Yeah.
But, this one, Laszlo 1, I think would be perfect today because, having a shaved head is so popular nowadays.
Yeah, right.
That would be great.
I was actually thinking of doing that with this one because this is the one I still use here.
Right. Okay.
And but I have to, I would have to do some patchwork behind the wig there. You know?
Right. Yeah, but that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. And again, now let's just go back to the one in your hand.
Yeah.
So again, that post that you're holding, again, that fits right down into the center.
Yeah, the body is hollow, and the shoulder piece, the clavicle, is got an opening in there, and this fits right in there, and this kind of rides on like a ball and socket type of thing, and
and then the access is from the back.
From the back, right.
Right.
In fact, one time I sent one of his suits to the cleaners,
Right.
and they actually patched up the hole in the back.
hole?
I thought they were doing me a favor.
Right.
They didn't charge
that's
me,
funny.
but they
That's
thought they
funny.
were doing me a favor.
So again, the thing that I find interesting is that, so that one you're holding today
Yeah.
is one that you would use today,
Right.
and that's exactly what Edgar Bergen was doing the same thing as far as these mechanics were concerned.
Yeah, actually, Charlie was a very simple puppet, though. The only thing that moved on him was the mouth. He was such a good puppeteer, though, that you really didn't take notice of anything else. It was like he was very brilliant.
Yeah.
One version of Charlie that he had, I think it was the one that's in the Smithsonian, actually, which has purported to be the original one. Not so sure about that, but that's a whole other program.
Okay.
But that one does have eyes that move side to side. But even when he used it on screen,
Yeah.
you never saw them move.
All right. Okay, let's take a look at this movie because, again, it's very, very interesting, very well made. I really enjoyed it a lot. Has Adolphe Menjou in it. Also, another great character actress, Eve Arden.
Eve Arden,
with
sure.
a wonderful voice. And also starring Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen. And he's in it almost right from the very beginning. So it's not he's just also, he's in the movie throughout the whole thing.
It's notable also because it's only the second feature film that Edgar Bergen did. He had done a series of shorts for Vitaphone throughout the 1930s. But even when he made his debut on radio, a lot of people still never saw Charlie McCarthy. So this, for some people at least, this was their first look at him.
Okay, great. All right, Alan Semok, other ventriloquist as well. Real quickly, tell me a little bit about Jimmy Nelson.
Jimmy Nelson is probably best known, other than a lot of appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show, for the commercials for Nestle's chocolate.
Right.
He had a 10-year run with them, which at the time was kind of a record. I think the only person that ever beat him out was when they had Margaret Hamilton doing the Maxwell House commercials.
Oh, wow. Okay, sure.
I could be wrong about that. I mean, Jimmy might still have the record. I don't know. But
well, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Was his character Danny O'Day?
Danny O'Day and Farfel, the dog.
Right. I had Danny O'Day myself. In fact, I went crazy the last 3 days trying to find him to bring him, but I couldn't. But yes, Danny O'Day. And then finally, what about Willie Tyler?
Willie Tyler, he came up in the, I'm guessing the mid or late 60s.
Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, I had a record album that came out, and I think that was put out in 66 or 67.
Okay.
And he had a pretty good career too, and he's still performing.
That's great.
In fact, we'll see him this July at the Ventriloquist Convention.
Wonderful.
He'll be making his first appearance
Now,
there.
when and where is that?
That's in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, in the third week in July.
Okay.
It's been held annually since 1975.
Okay. And his character is Lester.
Lester.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Can we talk to Laszlo before we go?
Sure.
'Cause I've been wondering what, he has to say about all this stuff. First of all, Laszlo, where are you from?
A suitcase. Where the hell do you think I'm from?
Oh, a suitcase. I didn't know that. Well, why the name Laszlo? Where does that come from?
Well, you see, it's a long story. My parents were from Hungary, and for many years I couldn't speak any English at all, just Hungarian.
Wow, that's great, because I don't detect an accent at all. What do you do for a living, Laszlo?
Man, I live.
You live?
Yeah.
Oh, you go out at night?
Oh, when I can muster the energy to do it, yeah.
Yeah. You have a girlfriend?
I do. She's a little bit younger than I am. She's only 87.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. And where do you go when you go out with her? You go dancing, you go to the movies, you go to dinner?
I just try not to go to sleep.
Oh, well, that's good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You look great.
Thanks. When do we get paid? All right.
Well, no. This is local TV. You know.
You dragged us out here for that?
Never mind, just leave him alone.
Well,
That's Laszlo.
Thank you, Laszlo, and thank you, Alan, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's been great learning all about all these great ventriloquism, and
fun, yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another episode of Classic Movies with Ron McCloskey, and see you soon on the TV.